From the simplest to the rarest of materials, from the barks and fibers of plants to the densest of hardwood, from paper and clay and precious metals to that most wondrous substance, a mind in flight, expressing itself in a torrent of words. These are the materials from which our traditional artisans and craftsmen have built solid and grounded traditions. Fragments of a nation waiting to be made whole by men and women who bring an entire culture and knowledge system into their creations. These are the chosen materials of indigenous craftsmen, they who are the embodiment of Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride. The second part of expressive fibers takes us beyond places where cotton, silk, and piña are used, and into the hills of Lake Cebu, where a master weaver works abaca into stunning textiles. We also go beyond our standard ideas of weaving and fibers as we explore baskets, palaspas, and the underappreciated jewel of our weaving tradition, the banig of Basilan, Palawan, and Samar. Weaving fibers, from cotton to pandan, from silk to nito, into textiles, baskets, mats, and utensils. It may seem complex and confusing to modern-day Filipinos, but for others, like the Tiboli weaver Barbara Ofong and other weavers we feature here, weaving is second nature, a means of expressing identity and celebrating life itself. Like the deceased Gawad Manilikan ng Bayan awardee Lang Dulay, Barbara Ofong is a Tiboli weaver who has mastered the difficult art of weaving abaca ikat. It is difficult, first, because abaca fiber is more laborious to process and to prepare than cotton, and because ikat weaving demands a technical precision where the abaca threads are tied and then dyed before being laid out on the backstrap loom. Only when the dyed threads are laid out on the backstrap loom does a semblance of a design emerge. And only when the weaving process has been completed will stunning and integral textiles emerge, designs and motifs all from the dreams and imagination of the weaver, passed on from generation to generation.
Abaca can also be considered like linen, because when we say linen, it's actually fibers coming from the stem. So since the fibers of the abaca come from the sheath of the fibrous banana, then that can also be linen. Suitable for textile weaving because it abounds in, well, the plant itself abounds in the Philippine Islands, from Mindanao, Visayas, even Luzon, but even Tagalog, southern Tagalog area. There have been production of abaca textiles. The term ikat is actually a Bahasa Indonesia term, which of course also being used by Malaysia, and now it's the term used all over the world, in textile world, when we talk about tie-dye resist. Ikat is tie-dye resist design technique. Most of the Mindanao cultures in the Philippines use ikat as the design technique. The Mandayas, they do their designs and their dagmays using the ikat technique. Then also Bagobo for their inabal, the Blaan for their inabor, and then the Tiboli for their tinalak. In reality talaga, no, ikat seem to be practiced, no, by almost all cultures from north to south. For the Tiboli and the Bagobo and also the Blaan, they usually come up with abaca ikat textiles that are of smooth texture, very pliant, smooth texture, well defined forms, no, design forms, really. Meaning, the colors, it's not crooked or not spilling out of the design form. No? So it shows that there is a high skill in the tying itself and also in the dyeing. Weavers or the people involved in the production of this abaca textiles have really mastered the dyeing process itself, the tying and dyeing, plus the whole process of textile weaving and even the finishing. They go through all these textiles, go through finishing, except for the mandaya. The mandaya and also subanen, they don't, their abaca textiles do not go through finishing process. For the bagobo, bilaan, and tiboli, the finishing process would be something like they would press the woven abaca textiles using the back of the cowrie shell. So that's what they would press really very hard on the surface of the woven abaca textiles to make it shiny, pliant, and every now and then they would rub a bit of the honey beeswax, or the beeswax. They would press, or they would apply that on the woven textiles and then press the surface of that abaca ikat textile with the use of the back of the cowrie shell. One thing about this master weavers, the late Salintamonon and late Lang Dulay, were awarded the Manlilikha ng Bayan honor. They are really dedicated textile weavers, very dedicated. They never use commercial dye. They only use natural dye. For Lang Dulay, for example, she is really the master of designing. She can come up with designs that are so intricate, just like the phoenix design. How can one come up with the phoenix? Or, we all know that the phoenix is a mythical bird with the intricate plumes, depicted with intricate plumes. And that's what she produced in some of her textiles. The works of Salintamonon and Lang Dulay, Barbara Ofong, and also Hilda, also Tiboli, they're really very good weavers, very smooth surface, well-defined design forms, and shiny and pliant.
While the animist Tiboli used the ikat method to embellish the abaca textile, the Islamic Tausug used embroidery influenced by Chinese motifs but thoroughly indigenized. A visual language of ochre scrolls and floral designs embroidered in silk threads on satin. This is a distinctly Tausug art of habul tiyahian embroidery. Perhaps we find ourselves so overwhelmed by the wealth of textile motifs and techniques in our own country that we sometimes overlook the baskets, palaspas, and the humble banig as fine examples of how expressive fibers are crafted. These are functional, yes, but they also express a high aesthetic standard. Humble, yes. Dignified, of course. And always reflecting a people's sense of functional beauty. The collection of the Tawid Museum in Lawag City documents the variety of shapes and forms developed by the peoples of the Cordillera. Here are baskets for winnowing rice, for transporting seedlings and grains, baskets for storing food and vegetables. Each form and type depicts a unique response of Cordillera artisans to the needs of their community. Weaving fibers is so deeply ingrained into our culture that we often overlook the crafts that are most endearingly connected to our own lives. Perhaps because the materials and finished products are ephemeral, we often take forms like the palaspas and the banig for granted. One scholar, Elmer Nocheseda, has devoted his life to studying these forms. His two books, Palaspas and Rara, document the wealth of these ephemeral crafts, as well as the knowledge and skill of the anonymous craftsmen.
I have documented more than 200 palaspas forms from all over the Philippines, from north to south. And it involves different kinds of palm leaf art, from utilitarian to decorative. Those palaspas forms that are used for packaging rice, and those palaspas forms that are used for as games, as toys, and those palaspas forms used in rituals, in dances, in prayers, in decorating altars, and in offertory rituals. Palaspas in the present form has been limited to the Palm Sunday rites that we are been used to. But in old dictionary, in the 1613 dictionary of Tagalog by Father Pedro Sanlucar, palaspas was given a very broad meaning. It's not only the palm that is used to decorate the churches in the Palm Sunday rites, but it includes also all the palm leaf art that could be made out of the leaves of coconut tree, of buri, of pandan, and other leaf material.
Those of us who have slept on a well-made banig remember the experience in tactile, sensual terms. The worn smoothness of the woven surface, the smell of fibers, the touch of the frayed edges. The banig is one of the few woven artifacts that most Filipinos know and respond to instinctively. The variety of mats and designs found all over the islands is a testament to its appeal.
We have a very pervasive mat weaving culture in the Philippines. Almost from north to south, we have a mat weaving tradition. It is basically because we have plenty of natural materials that lend themselves to mat weaving. The different areas in the Philippines can boast of a particular mat based on the mat weaving material available in that area. The most common material is the pandan. The next is the buri. The basic technique is the 1/1 or the simple mat weave. And this is present in all the mat weaving areas in the Philippines. But some weaving cultures have intensive culture of mat weaving that they have created different techniques to form different designs. Like the Sama of Tawi-Tawi, they make use of the splicing technique called tinabit. Mat weaving is a way of life. It cannot be taught in school. You have to be there in the community to learn and to understand the mat weaving. And mat weaving is imbibed. It's a tacit knowledge that one acquires from her grandmother, from her mother, from her aunt, from her sister, from her relatives. It's passed on, tradition is passed on. And the lifestyle is acquired from getting the palm leaves, from getting the pandan leaves, by stripping them, boiling them, dyeing them, drying them, weaving them, and cutting them into the right sizes.
Our survey of mat weaving traditions begins in Palawan. Among the Palawanon,
some of the best mats are found in Palawan. When you go to the south, you could see the mats made by the Jama Mapun. And they have created beautiful mats because they have a very beautiful source of pandan leaf material. The Palawan people have access to bountiful supply of rattan. These beautiful mats are integral in the life of the people of Palawan. For the Jama Mapun, they use it as the mat for their prayers during Salah. So mats have meaning in the lives of the people of Palawan.
Mga materials po ay pandan leaves, tapos ito ay kinukulayan, at ito ay mahaba-haba ring proseso bago mabuo itong paggawa ng banig na to, dahil ito ay papaputiin, tapos kukulayan, then gawin na yung kung anong design ang gusto o order ng mga tao. Then, ito po ay doble. May lining po siya, yun na ganun. Pag ganitong maliliit na banig, ito ay mga 5 araw hanggang 7 araw kung ang materials ay ready na para gawin. Pag malalaki naman po, mga 1 buwan ang paggawa ng banig nito, na tulad nito kalaki.
The Yakan are renowned for their dazzling and complex textiles. The geometric motifs found in their seputangan textiles are also echoed in their banig.
The Yakan weavers make use of a lot of colors, as you could see in their woven textile. And in seputangan, they use varied colors, and they apply it also in their mats. What is very nice in their mats is they make use of asymmetrical patterns. It's not typical grid-like designs that is predominant in most mats. And you could see this asymmetrical beauty mats of the Yakan.
Yun ang nagturo sa akin, nanay ko, na ganito yung paggawa sa kanya. Yun ang ginagawa ko, yung turo ng nanay ko. O yung mga weavers sa pamilya namin, yung kapatid ng nanay ko, mayroon din po matuto maggawa ng banig. Tapos yung anak niya marunong din. Kaya na ganito, nabuo ganito, imagine lang po, sa isip namin lang kinukuha yun. Yung ganito kami naggawa, isip-isip namin lang yun.
In Samar, the tradition of mat weaving is enriched by a unique location. In Basay, the weavers of Basyao traditionally weave their mats in the nearby cave.
The mats of Samar are the most popular mats in the Philippines. When you speak of banig, everybody thinks of the Samar mats because it's very distinct in the sense that they make use of a lot of designs, and they follow the trend of the season of the present age in forming designs. The caves basically are used for practical reasons. One, it shades them from the direct rays of the sun, because the woven material, the material that is being used are very delicate and can snap when it is so dry. So they want to maintain the humidity of the place such that they would not break the fibers that they are weaving. In some areas which don't have the benefit of the caves, they can just weave during the early morning hours or the late in the evening or early afternoon when the sun sets.
Nung maliit pa po kami, nakikita namin po sa lola namin, sa nanay namin. Tapos, nung kaya na namin, nag-uumpisa na kami maggawa nito ng banig. Hanggang sa ngayon po, ito po ang aming ginagawa.
As folk art, the mats of the Philippines can be considered a metaphor for our similarities and our differences. Each distinct design, each technique, each particular way of weaving, dyeing, and finishing a mat speaks volumes about how the same object can be so expressive of a people's sensibility.
Ang banig ay isa sa pinakamahalagang bahagi ng kulturang Pilipino, mula sa pagsilang niya hanggang sa kanyang kamatayan. Bahagi ito ng buhay ng Pilipino. Walang ibang bagay sa Pilipino na ganitong ka-pervasive ang binibigay na halaga sa buhay ng Pilipino. Unfortunately, yung mga nakatira na sa syudad at na malayo na sa gawaan ng banig ay nakakalimutan na ang kahalagahan ng banig na ito.
cannot end our survey of the country's expressive fibers without looking at these other forms. The vakul is a distinct trademark headgear of the Ivatan of Batanes. Part raincoat, part sunshade, the tough fibers that make up the signature mane are attached to a basketry form. In the rain, the vakul keeps one's head dry. In the scorching heat, it keeps the head and back cool.
Paggawa kayo ng vakul, ito ang unang gawin. Ganyan. Para mapino yung leaves niya. Maging fiber na, ipapatuyo na. Ito na. Ihihiwalay na. Yung bakol, ito ang umpisa niyan, pambabae. Ito ang umpisa sa ulo. Yung abaka, yan ang niyan, ibabalot yan sa abaka, yung buyaboy. Ganyan. Kung ipataas mo na ito sa paganito, yan na, ilagay mo na yung base nito para may na. Ito ang abaka. Ito ang abaka, yan ang yan sa buyaboy. Ipaloob yung buyaboy dito sa abaka. Tapos, ipabuhol sa lubid para may teknik ang buhol nito. Igagamit ang abaka dito sa bakol para maano yung buyaboy dito sa katawan ng bakol. Para matibay. Ito ang isang bakol na ito, yung large na bakol, 1 linggo ang paggawa nito.
Among the Maranao, the tutup is covering for food that is used in both ceremonial gatherings as well as ordinary meals. The dome shape is made all the more attractive by the bursts of color and the woven geometric patterns. We began with textiles and clothing, then on to baskets and palaspas, banig, and headgear. Our survey is far from complete, but that only stresses just how rich and varied are the crafts that utilize our expressive fibers.
The Filipino craftsman has so much respect for nature. As much as possible, the raw state of the material is preserved to make sure that we recognize where it came from. For example, tiko grass, leaves are shown as they are, although colored, but still you recognize the materials that were used for the product. Unlike in other countries, in other cultures, where so much polishing, so much transformation occurs, that you hardly recognize the material from which it is made. In our culture, there is also the respect for certain times of the year to harvest materials. For example, there is the idea of taga sa panahon, meaning you cut it at the right season. There's also the tendency on the part of our traditional artists to gather materials that are just lying around, and also leaves that are just were being blown by the wind, twigs. They are used not only for firewood but for materials, for the creation of art. So in general, there is a respect for nature to preserve the natural look of the material, and also not to destroy the ecology by getting only those things that are in excess in nature.
Traditional Filipinos took from nature the fibers they needed. They wrapped themselves in the weaves of their own creations. They lived with baskets and containers woven with grace and resilience. They rested, bonded, and slept on fragrant mats. So doing, they enhanced their lives with their own handiwork. Their communities made stronger by the shared experience of creating and living with the work of their own hands. More than just craft, it was a way of living, a lifestyle bound to the earth, to the community, to the ideals of beauty and even comfort. A life lived with Dayaw, our knowledge, our pride.